you're a student at UGA, chances are you've seen this logo. It's found on banners, buses, and of course, merchandise. But have you ever stopped and wondered who made the logos? This is Chad Morehead, the co-director of Football Creative Design. In this video, he will break down the logos and explain the creative processes behind them.
Well, I've always sort of been artistic, which was kind of fun because I was also an athlete, so it's not really a pair that you see very often. But I went to school originally at Swanee University of the South up in Tennessee, and then I transferred to Mercer University, and that's where I actually kind of switched my major to graphic design. That was kind of the first place that I actually got into like design as a whole. Typically sometime between like the SEC championship and the playoff, like the first game of the playoff, it gets finalized. I'm kind of amazed that like the logo stays hidden because there's just so many eyes on it when it gets to that point. Like there's a huge checks and balance system that you got to go through. So they've got to be approved by the coaching staff, operations, licensing, merchandising. We started drafting concepts it's definitely towards the later half of the season. If we had picked up one or two losses throughout the season, like this probably wouldn't ever started until we like made the playoff. But once we clinched the East and knew that we were in a good spot and like heading into the postseason, that's where it really ramped up. Like any team who is a top 5, 6, 7 team that's like a bubble playoff team, they're probably working on some sort of logo. The 2021 logo actually came together really quickly. I always knew, like, if you look at Lucas Oil Stadium, it's just a super iconic shape. So it made it really easy to, create this top shape up here. Let's hide a couple of things here. Top shape up here makes it really easy to kind of outline Lucas Oil Stadium, especially when you put the window in. It's immediately recognizable. And then one of my coworkers, who was the director of video at the time, he now works for the Falcons, he was like, "You've got to do a collar." And it was kind of my job to figure out how to visualize that part of the logo. So once we figured out the collar and the top, everything else was just kind of like fitting in between. And then it was trying to figure out all the Easter eggs that we could kind of hide in there. Wanted to give a nod to the host city, but also wanted to make it very Georgia, stuff that any of our fans are going to easily recognize, like the Power Jesus staple, of course, but the stripe on the pants, the dog collar was a huge call there. So that was kind of year one. This logo was way more difficult to design because you always want to improve upon your previous work, obviously, and also want it to be sort of as iconic and timeless. And we worked really hard on the first one because it's like you never know when you're guaranteed to be able to do it again. And then you fast forward 10 months and you're right back in the seat. A lot of things we tried to make work on this year's logo. Like SoFi Stadium has the halo board, which is like a very iconic thing with that. So we were trying to figure out a way to incorporate it, and I was almost dying on that hill trying to make sure that we got that in there, and it just would not work for whatever reasons. An early illustration, this is like way further down the line, but you fly into LA, there's this huge mountain range, and I think it's the Santa Clara mountain range that's like right behind LA. And it makes for like a really awesome setting. So we had the stadium illustration, and he illustrated these mountains to kind of go across that top part. And again, it was just one of those things that we couldn't really get to work. So a couple versions down, we were able to condense everything, and the space that we have, the light rays up top, is where the mountains were originally, but we sent it in for approval, and it kind of confused some people because like when you think of LA, the first thing you think of is not really a mountain range, even though when you get there it's like, oh, there's 10,000 foot mountain right behind the city, But a lot of people like started thinking about like, is this game played in Colorado or in the Rockies somewhere or something like that. So we ended up nixing the mountains, and that's where you get the light rays. My wife had the great idea to do 15 different rays for a 15-0 season. So when I say it's a team effort, it really is a team effort. I mean, it's awesome for sure. Like walking around town and you see the logo everywhere. It was kind of crazy, you know. Family, friends, and different people like know that I work on the logo, so they'll send me random photos of where they see it in different places. And senior work, anytime it's on like a national stage, is always cool. So it is kind of funny though, because the university put it everywhere, which is really neat. But you'll see it on like the buses, which I get, and you see it on like different buildings and stuff like that. But they also put it on all the trash trucks, which is super funny. And I was like, I don't think that's kind of the vision that I had for this, but and it's literally everywhere. Such a small amount of student athletes that actually go pro in any sport, but there's so many jobs in athletics. I mean, if you are just really into accounting, I mean, there's business office. If you're interested in sales, there's all sorts of sales opportunities in athletics. Ticket office, business, travel, sports med, coaching, graphics. You name it, you can almost find a position in athletics. So just because you're not an athlete anymore doesn't mean that you can't, hang around and talk sports all day, which is, definitely a blessing of the job. But for like young creatives out there, the biggest advice I always gave everybody was be willing to move. Like, this is such a niche field, and it has exploded over the last couple of years, don't get me wrong. There are way more jobs now than there ever have been. But when I was young, I was like, I'm never going to leave the Southeast. Well, it took me moving all the way out to Wyoming and living out there for a year to kind of get my big break, and then move back into the SEC. And one thing led to another, and now I'm here, designing for Georgia. Say like, you can live anywhere once. You can put up with anything for a year. So don't limit your opportunities just because you're locked into one geographical location. Just continue to develop your work. I mean, at the end of the day, your work's going to be what gets you hired. It's not going to be necessarily your degree or what your GPA was in school. Like, if you've got a strong portfolio and you got great work ethic, especially in my line of work, that's going to take you way further than just having a degree would.